They say loyalty is a choice, but when Max heard Sarah's scream through the storm, crashing through a second-story window wasn't a choice, it was the only possible response. The windshield wipers fought a losing battle against the deluge, screeching across the glass in desperate arcs. Sarah Winters leaned forward in her seat, shoulders tense, eyes narrowed as she peered through the curtain of water cascading down her windshield. The darkness pressed in from all sides, broken only by the feeble reach of her headlights cutting through the storm. "Just 2 more minutes," she whispered to herself, knuckles white against the steering wheel. 2 more minutes and I'll be home." Lightning flashed, illuminating the road ahead for a split second, just long enough for Sarah to see the fallen branch she was about to hit. Her reflexes kicked in. She swerved sharply, tires losing their grip on the slick asphalt. The car fishtailed, then righted itself. Sarah exhaled shakily, her heart hammering against her ribs. The 12-hour shift at the hospital had drained every ounce of energy from her body. All she wanted now was a hot shower, a cup of tea, and the comfort of her bed. The corner of Maple Street appeared through the rain. Almost there. Relief flooded through her as she turned the wheel, guiding the car onto her street. The familiar row of houses, dark and silent in the storm, welcomed her home. Then, without warning, the engine coughed. Sarah frowned, her momentary relief evaporating. The car shuddered beneath her, the dashboard lights flickering once, twice, before the engine sputtered and died completely. No, no, no. She turned the key in the ignition again. Nothing, not even a struggling sound of the starter. Just dead silence, punctuated by the rhythmic beating of rain against the roof. Sarah sat back, confusion washing over her exhaustion. The car was only 3 years old. She'd just had it serviced last month. Why would it suddenly die like this? She reached for her phone, pulling it from her purse. The screen illuminated her face in the darkness, casting harsh shadows across her features. No signal bars. Just a mocking no service where her carrier's name should be. "That's impossible," she muttered, holding the phone higher, as if that might somehow catch a signal. Nothing changed. The rain hammered harder, the sound amplifying her sudden isolation. She was only 3 houses away from home, but the storm made the short distance seem insurmountable. Lightning flashed again, thunder following almost immediately. The storm was directly overhead now. Sarah glanced at the dark houses lining the street. Everyone had their lights off. Was the power out in the neighborhood? That might explain the phone signal if a tower was down. A movement in her side mirror caught her attention, just a flicker, there and gone so quickly she might have imagined it. Sarah froze, eyes locked on the mirror, waiting for it to reappear. There, again. Something was moving in the darkness behind her car. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Her tired mind raced through possibilities. A neighbor? A stray animal seeking shelter from the storm? The rain distorted everything, turning the world outside into a watery blur of shadows and uncertainty. Another flash of lightning, and Sarah caught a glimpse of something low to the ground, moving with purpose toward her car. Her fingers instinctively found the door lock button, pressing it down with a resolute click that echoed in the silent car. Whatever was out there, she wasn't taking chances. The thing moved closer, becoming more distinct with each step. Not human, too small, too low to the ground. An animal then, but what kind? The rain made it impossible to tell. Sarah's pulse quickened. She'd heard stories of coyotes venturing into the suburbs during storms, confused and disoriented. Or could it be something else? Something driven from its home by the flooding that had plagued the outskirts of town for weeks? Another flash of lightning revealed the creature more clearly, and Sarah's breath caught. It was a dog. Soaked to the bone, limping slightly, its fur matted against its thin frame. But there was something else, something in its mouth. The dog approached her car cautiously, eyes reflecting the dim light from Sarah's phone. It stopped just outside her window, staring directly at her through the glass with an intelligence that made Sarah's skin prickle. What was it carrying? And why did it seem to be approaching her specifically? Thunder cracked overhead, making Sarah jump. The dog didn't flinch. It just stood there, rain streaming down its body, eyes locked with hers, waiting. Waiting for what? Sarah's eyes remained fixed on the dog outside her window, its dark eyes reflecting an almost human intelligence. Whatever it was carrying in its mouth was small, partially obscured by the rain and darkness. She hesitated, caught between fear and compassion. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, gathering her courage. The dog clearly needed help, and her house was just 3 doors down. She could make a run for it, or perhaps help the animal. Decision made, Sarah pulled her rain jacket from the passenger seat and shrugged it on. She took a deep breath and pushed the door open against the howling wind. The rain immediately assaulted her, icy needles stinging her face, soaking her scrubs in seconds. The dog backed away slightly but didn't run, its eyes never leaving hers. "Hey there," Sarah called softly, her voice nearly lost in the storm. "What have you got there, buddy?" Lightning illuminated the street for a brief moment. In that flash, Sarah could have sworn she saw something move in the drainage ditch across the road, something much larger than a dog. She blinked away the rainwater streaming down her face, trying to peer through the darkness. The sudden unease prickling at the back of her neck grew stronger. Something wasn't right. Sarah turned back to her car, squinting at the darkened dashboard. Whatever was wrong, she needed to at least try to fix it. She reached inside and pulled the hood release, then moved to the front of the vehicle. The hood rose with a metallic groan, and she propped it open, creating a small shelter from the relentless downpour. The engine components glistened wet in the dim light of her phone's flashlight. Sarah wasn't a mechanic, but her father had taught her the basics. She checked the battery terminals, they seemed properly connected. The engine was still warm despite the rain, so it couldn't be flooded. "Come on, give me something," she whispered, sweeping her light across the mysterious maze of machinery. Thunder cracked overhead, startlingly close. Sarah flinched, then froze as another sound followed immediately after, a deep, guttural growl that vibrated through the ground beneath her feet. That wasn't thunder. Her body went rigid, primal instinct screaming danger before her conscious mind could process why. The sound came again, lower, closer. Sarah slowly lowered her phone, directing its beam toward the drainage ditch beside the road. "Did you catch that at the 2-minute mark?" 2 eyes reflected the light, enormous, prehistoric eyes set in a primitive, armored head. The massive form shifted in the rushing water of the ditch, powerful muscles coiling beneath scaled skin. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. An alligator. Here, in a suburban neighborhood, miles from any natural habitat. It had to be at least 12 feet long. The creature's eyes remained fixed on her, unblinking, calculating. The flooding from the storm must have carried it here from the nature preserve south of town. Time seemed to slow. Sarah knew she should run, but her feet felt cemented to the asphalt. The alligator's tail swept through the water, its massive body beginning to move. The dog barked suddenly, a sharp, urgent sound that shattered Sarah's paralysis. She stumbled backward, turning to flee, but her foot caught on an uneven patch of road. She went down hard on one knee, pain shooting up her leg. In that moment of vulnerability, the alligator surged forward with shocking speed, propelling its enormous body from the ditch in an explosion of water and mud. Sarah scrambled to her feet, but she was too slow. The creature's massive jaws opened wide, revealing rows of yellowed teeth. Sarah threw herself sideways, but not fast enough to completely avoid the attack. The alligator's jaws snapped around her calf, teeth sinking into flesh and muscle. White-hot pain exploded through Sarah's body. Her scream tore through the night, primal and desperate. The alligator began its death roll, attempting to drag her toward the ditch. Sarah's fingers clawed desperately at the wet asphalt, finding no purchase as her body was wrenched violently. "Help!" she screamed, though she knew the storm would swallow her cries. The houses remained dark, windows blind to her struggle. No one was coming. The alligator twisted again, its grip tightening. Sarah could feel warm blood mixing with the cold rain on her leg. Desperation surged through her veins. She wouldn't die like this, not here, not now. With her free leg, she kicked furiously at the creature's eye, the only vulnerable spot she could reach. Her shoe connected with the leathery socket, but the alligator only clamped down harder in response. The world narrowed to flashes of lightning, the roar of rain, and excruciating pain. Sarah's strength was fading fast. The edge of the water-filled ditch loomed closer as the alligator continued to drag her inch by inch. Then, through the haze of pain and terror, Sarah heard another sound, the dog barking frantically, no longer at the periphery but directly beside her. And there was something else, a high-pitched crying noise coming from what the dog had been carrying. The alligator paused its death roll, momentarily distracted by the new sounds. In that brief reprieve, Sarah caught sight of what lay beside her on the ground, illuminated by a flash of lightning. A tiny alligator hatchling, no longer than her forearm, squirming in the rain where the dog had dropped it. Understanding dawned with crystal clarity. This wasn't a random attack. She was facing a mother protecting her young. The realization that she faced a mother protecting her young did nothing to lessen Sarah's agony. The massive jaws remained clamped around her calf, teeth penetrating flesh and muscle. Blood pulsed from the wound, mixing with rainwater in dark rivulets across the asphalt. "Let go!" Sarah screamed, her voice raw with pain and terror. She twisted her body, trying to break free, but the movement only caused the alligator's teeth to sink deeper. Lightning flashed again, turning the world into a stark tableau of horror. The massive reptile, the injured woman, the frantic dog, and the tiny hatchling squirming on the wet ground. In that moment of illumination, Sarah saw the mother alligator's eyes shift toward her offspring, primal instinct momentarily dividing her attention. Sarah seized the opportunity, summoning strength she didn't know she possessed. She drove her elbow down with all her might, aiming for the sensitive spot where the alligator's jaw connected to its skull. The creature flinched, its grip loosening just enough for Sarah to wrench her leg partially free. But freedom came at a cost. Teeth tore through skin as she pulled away, leaving ragged wounds that immediately flooded with fresh blood. Sarah screamed again, a sound of pure anguish that cut through the storm like a knife. 3 houses down, inside Sarah's darkened home, a pair of German Shepherd ears suddenly stood at attention. Max had been restless all evening, pacing from window to window as the storm intensified. Something about the thunder had set him on edge hours ago, an instinct he couldn't explain but couldn't ignore. His owner should have been home by now. Then he heard it, a scream unlike anything he'd heard before. But the voice, he knew that voice. Sarah. Max bolted to the front door, his nails clicking frantically against the hardwood floor. He pressed his nose to the gap beneath the door, catching her scent mingled with something else, something primal and dangerous. Fear coursed through him, not for himself, but for her. He barked once, twice, then a continuous stream of desperate alerts. No response came. The house remained empty save for him, trapped behind locked doors and walls. Max spun in a tight circle, whining high in his throat. His training as Sarah's service dog had taught him to remain calm in emergencies, to think, not just react. His intelligent eyes scanned the room, searching for a solution. The living room window was cracked open a few inches, just enough to allow a breeze but not enough for a dog his size. Max raced to it, standing on his hind legs, pawing at the glass. It budged slightly but wouldn't open wider. Another scream reached him through the storm, weaker this time. Sarah was fading. Panic surged through Max's body. He ran back to the door, scratching frantically, throwing his full weight against it. The solid oak didn't budge. He barked louder, hoping to alert a neighbor, anyone who might help. But the storm swallowed his cries just as it had Sarah's. Outside in the deluge, Sarah was weakening. The initial surge of adrenaline was fading, replaced by a dangerous lightheadedness. The alligator had regained its grip, though less securely than before. It was dragging her inch by agonizing inch toward the flooded ditch. The stray dog circled them, barking desperately, darting in occasionally to nip at the alligator's tail before retreating from the lashing response. Its efforts were brave but futile against such a formidable predator. Sarah's thoughts were becoming disjointed, clarity slipping away with her blood. The rain pelted her face, washing away tears she didn't realize she was shedding. She thought of Max, waiting for her at home. Who would take care of him if she died here? Max, she whispered, the name giving her a momentary surge of determination. She couldn't give up. With trembling hands, Sarah reached for anything she could use as a weapon. Her fingers closed around a piece of branch that had fallen during the storm, not large, but solid enough to be useful. Gripping it tightly, she jabbed at the alligator's eye with all her remaining strength. The creature recoiled, releasing her leg for a split second. Sarah scrambled backward, dragging her injured leg, leaving a trail of blood on the wet asphalt. But the alligator recovered quickly, lunging forward again, jaws open wide. Inside the house, Max heard the alligator's enraged roar. Something in him snapped, a primal switch that overrode training and caution. He backed up from the living room window, muscles bunching beneath his thick coat. Then he charged. 85 pounds of loyal German Shepherd slammed into the partially open window with the force of pure devotion. The window frame splintered, glass cracked, and the opening widened just enough. Max squeezed through, ignoring the sharp pain as a shard of glass sliced his shoulder. He landed in the flower bed below, immediately orienting himself toward Sarah's scent and cries. Rain plastered his fur to his powerful frame as he tore through the yard, leaped the low fence, and raced down the street. His paws splashed through puddles, his focus absolute, his mission clear. Save Sarah. The alligator's jaws were inches from Sarah's face when a dark blur crashed into the reptile's side with shocking force. Max had arrived, teeth bared, a primal growl rumbling from deep in his chest. The stray dog, finding an ally, joined the attack from the other side. The alligator, caught between two determined canines, momentarily released its grip on Sarah. Max, Sarah gasped, disbelief and hope mingling in her voice. How did you? Her loyal companion had no time to acknowledge her. He darted in again, teeth finding purchase on the alligator's sensitive snout, drawing blood. The stray followed his lead, targeting the creature's tail. For the first time, the massive predator seemed uncertain, caught between defending itself and protecting its offspring. It hissed, snapping at Max but missing as he nimbly dodged away. Sarah knew this reprieve wouldn't last. Max was brave and strong, but the alligator outweighed him by hundreds of pounds. She needed to act now. With trembling hands, she began dragging herself toward her car, leaving a trail of blood in her wake. Each movement sent spikes of agony through her mangled leg, but she forced herself to continue. Behind her, the sounds of the desperate struggle intensified, growls, hisses, the splash of bodies in water. A sharp yelp cut through the chaos, followed by Max's enraged bark. Sarah reached the car door, pulled herself upright using the handle. Through the curtain of rain, she saw Max and the stray working in perfect synchrony, one distracting the alligator while the other attacked from behind. But the reptile was learning their pattern, becoming more focused, more dangerous. Time was running out. And then, through the storm's fury, came a new sound, the wail of approaching sirens. The approaching sirens wavered through the storm, still distant, too distant. Sarah clutched the car door handle, her vision blurring as blood continued to seep from her mangled leg. The alligator, momentarily distracted by the two dogs, was regaining its focus, its primitive brain calculating each attack with increasing precision. Max darted in, teeth bared, but the alligator was ready. Its massive tail whipped around, catching the German Shepherd mid-lunge and sending him tumbling across the wet asphalt. The stray dog hesitated, caught between continuing the fight and checking on its fallen ally. In that moment of hesitation, the alligator lunged towards Sarah again, sensing easier prey. Max! Run! Sarah screamed, knowing her loyal companion would never abandon her but desperately wishing he would save himself. 10 minutes earlier. Max hadn't stopped when the living room window failed to yield enough space for his escape. The sound of Sarah's screams drove him to a frenzy of determination, each cry weaker than the last. Time was running out. He sprinted through the house, searching for another exit point. The back door, locked. The kitchen window, too small. His powerful muscles bunched as he hurled himself against the front door again, the impact sending pain shooting through his shoulder. The solid oak frame shuddered but held firm. Max's breathing came in sharp pants, panic threatening to overwhelm his training. But deep within his canine brain, something else took hold, a calculated determination that transcended instinct. He dashed upstairs, paws slipping on the wooden steps in his haste. The house was familiar territory, he knew every corner, every room. Sarah's bedroom door stood ajar at the end of the hallway. Max burst through, scanning the space with desperate intelligence. The window. It overlooked the front yard, positioned directly above the porch roof. It wasn't open, but the latch was old and loose. Sarah had mentioned needing to fix it someday. Max leaped onto the bed, then to the windowsill, his weight causing the latch to creak. He pawed at it frantically, feeling it give slightly with each attempt. A particularly powerful strike caused it to shift just enough. But the window remained closed, the glass an impenetrable barrier between him and Sarah. Outside, another scream reached him, fainter now, edged with diminishing strength. The sound sent a surge of desperate resolve through Max's body. There was only one way out. Max backed up to the far side of the room, muscles coiling beneath his wet fur. His intelligent eyes fixed on the window, calculating distance and force required. Something primordial awakened in him, something beyond training, beyond domestication. The wolf ancestry that slumbered in his DNA roared to life. With a tremendous surge of power, Max launched himself toward the window, 85 pounds of pure, loyal determination. His body crashed into the glass with explosive force. For a heartbeat, the window resisted, then shattered in a spectacular burst of jagged shards and splintered wood. Pain lanced through Max's body as glass sliced into his flesh. A particularly vicious shard tore a gash along his side, but he barely registered the injury. He tumbled onto the sloped roof of the porch, scrambling for purchase on the slick shingles, blood from his wounds mixing with the relentless rain. The edge of the roof approached rapidly as he slid downward. Max tensed, then leaped, landing heavily on the sodden lawn below. The impact sent fresh waves of pain through his injured body, but he didn't falter. He sprinted around the side of the house, guided by Sarah's scent and cries. The rain pelted his fur, washing away streams of blood from a dozen cuts. Glass fragments embedded in his paws left crimson footprints as he ran, each step a testament to his sacrifice. None of it mattered. Only Sarah mattered. Now, as the alligator advanced toward Sarah again, Max pulled himself to his feet, shaking off the effects of the powerful tail strike. Blood matted his fur in dark patches where glass had cut into his flesh. His left front paw barely supported his weight, likely broken from his desperate leap through the window. But his eyes burned with unwavering resolve. The stray dog, seeing Max rise, found renewed courage. Together, they positioned themselves between Sarah and the advancing predator. The rain continued to pour, washing blood from woman and dog alike into the same crimson streams. The alligator hissed, its patience wearing thin. The small hatchling still squirmed nearby, its distress calls driving the mother's aggression. With shocking speed, the massive reptile lunged forward, jaws agape. 3 weeks after that harrowing night, Sarah sat in the veterinary hospital's recovery room, her bandaged leg propped carefully on a stool before her. Outside, sunlight streamed through windows that had only known rain during their last visit. The spring storm season had finally passed, leaving behind renewed growth and clearer skies. "He's ready to see you now," Dr. Martinez said, poking her head through the doorway with a warm smile. "He's been whining for you all morning." Sarah reached for her crutches, the movement sending a dull ache through her healing calf. The doctors had told her she was lucky. Despite the severity of the wounds, the alligator's teeth had somehow missed major arteries and tendons. With physical therapy, she'd walk normally again within months. Max hadn't been as fortunate. She followed Dr. Martinez down the hallway, the steady rhythm of crutches against floor tiles echoing her heartbeat. The past 3 weeks had been a blur of hospital rooms, antibiotics, and anxious waiting. First for herself, then, far more agonizingly, for Max. The German Shepherd had suffered multiple deep lacerations from the window glass, a broken front leg, and significant blood loss. The first 72 hours had been touch and go, with Sarah refusing to leave his side despite her own injuries. She'd signed herself out of the hospital against medical advice, determined that Max wouldn't wake up in a strange place without her. "He's healing remarkably well," Dr. Martinez said as they approached the recovery suite. "His physical resilience matches his spirit. Not many dogs would have survived what he went through." Sarah felt the familiar tightness in her throat. Not many dogs would have gone through it in the first place. Dr. Martinez nodded, understanding the depth behind those simple words. She pushed open the door to reveal a sunlit room with a large padded bed in the center. Max lay there, his body still marked by healing incisions, his front leg encased in a blue cast decorated with paw prints from the veterinary staff. His ears perked up the instant Sarah entered, his tail immediately thumping against the bed in a steady rhythm of joy. Even injured, even recovering from surgeries and transfusions, his focus remained entirely on her. "Hey, buddy," Sarah whispered, lowering herself carefully to sit beside his bed. She gently stroked the fur between his ears, careful to avoid the healing cut along his cheek. "Ready to come home?" Max's response was to lick her hand, his eyes never leaving her face. The simple gesture brought tears to Sarah's eyes, the same unconditional devotion that had driven him through glass and into battle with a creature 10 times his size. "The paperwork's all set," Dr. Martinez said, placing a folder and medication bottles on the nearby table. "Just remember to follow the recovery protocol strictly. No stairs for another 2 weeks, gentle walking only, and those antibiotics need to be finished completely." Sarah nodded, only half listening. Her attention remained fixed on Max, on the miracle of his survival. The emergency veterinarians had initially recommended euthanasia when they saw the extent of his injuries, deeming them too severe for recovery. She had refused vehemently, mortgaging her house to pay for the specialized surgeries and care he needed. Some called it excessive. She called it the bare minimum she owed him. "There's someone else anxious to see you both," Dr. Martinez added with a smile, opening the door again. A sleek, clean shape bounded into the room, the stray dog from that night, though stray no longer applied. After helping to save Sarah's life, the dog had been taken in by animal control, then transferred to the shelter adjacent to the veterinary hospital. Sarah had visited her between Max's treatments, learning that she was a young female mixed breed with no microchip or identification. The shelter had named her Hero. Hero approached Max's bed cautiously, as if understanding his injured state. She gently nuzzled his uninjured side, then settled beside him, her head resting protectively near his. "They've become inseparable during the recovery periods," Dr. Martinez explained. "We started bringing her in for short visits after noticing how much calmer Max was around her. Eventually, she just stayed." Sarah watched the 2 dogs together, their silent communication speaking volumes. The bond forged in battle had deepened during recovery. "You know," Dr. Martinez continued carefully, "Hero's officially available for adoption as of yesterday. Several families have already expressed interest, but I may have suggested they consider other dogs." Sarah met the veterinarian's knowing gaze. "Did you now? It would be a shame to separate them after everything they've been through together." Sarah looked at her modestly sized house through new eyes as she pulled into the driveway later that afternoon. The front window remained boarded up, awaiting replacement. The yard showed signs of neglect after weeks with no one home to tend it. The porch steps now featured a newly installed ramp for Max's recovery. It was the same house she'd been desperately trying to reach that stormy night, yet everything had changed. With help from Dr. Martinez and a veterinary technician, they carefully transferred Max from the clinic van to a cushioned bed in the living room. Hero followed attentively, seemingly understanding her new role as companion and protector. When everyone had left and the house fell quiet, Sarah settled on the floor beside Max's bed, her injured legs stretched out alongside his casted paw. Hero curled up on his other side, maintaining her vigilant position. "We're quite the trio now," Sarah said softly, stroking both dogs. Her fingers traced the healing scars on Max's side, permanent reminders of his sacrifice. Outside, another spring storm was brewing, dark clouds gathering on the horizon. A few months ago, the approaching thunder would have filled Sarah with nothing but peaceful anticipation of a cozy evening at home. Now, it carried echoes of terror, of pain, of desperate struggles in the rain. Max's ears perked at the distant rumble. His body tensed slightly, memories of that night perhaps surfacing in whatever way dogs remembered traumatic events. Hero sensed his discomfort immediately, pressing closer to his side, offering silent reassurance. Sarah leaned down, gently embracing them both. "It's okay," she whispered. "We're all safe now. We got through it together." The rain began to fall, gentle drops pattering against the windows, so different from the violent deluge of that night. Max's tension gradually eased as he recognized the familiar sounds of home, of safety, reinforced by Sarah's presence and Hero's companionship. 3 broken bodies, healing together. 3 lives, inextricably linked by one stormy night and the extraordinary courage it had revealed. As thunder rolled again across the sky, none of them flinched. They had faced the storm at its worst and survived. Everything that followed, recovery, pain, rebuilding, they would face the same way. Together.